Nkosi sikaleli Africa, manupaganiswa goyeto. This is why I love the Springboks. The Springboks are our rugby team within South Africa. And if you ever watched anyone on the TV, on the big sports games, had a beer and sat in a bar anywhere in South Africa, you'll know that we love our Springboks. And that's why I'm wearing a very special beanie today. Now, unfortunately, the Springboks haven't been playing all that much in this season, but soon enough, they're going to be going head to head with the Wallabies from Australia, with New Zealand team, which they call themselves the All Blacks, and all the other teams in between. And I want to tell you why, not just why I love the Springboks, but why you too can be a fan. Let's get into that. So I want to tell you why I love the Springboks. Now, the very first thing that's important to know is that in South Africa, we love watching rugby. And when I say that, I mean we love braaiing meat, having we call it a braai. If you aren't familiar with South Africa, we have a lovely braai. And from there, we like to watch rugby together. And that rugby is what brings us all together. The grannies, the grandpas, the uncles, aunties, we all sit together. We all love to watch the rugby. And my fondest memories are when I, as a child, have gone to see Granny and Grandpa, and we've sat in the lounge in the living room on a freezing winter's night, and the rugby is going. And as the Springboks score a try, Siya Kolisi goes down, or somebody kicks it, Andre Pollard kicks it through the two T's, or whatever you want to call it, through the goal post. Then we all celebrate, and we have chips, we shove our faces full with chocolates, popcorn, and everybody has their own custom. In our family, our custom is to always have chips and snacks whenever we watch the rugby. Other people have a custom that in the build-up to the rugby, they watch the whole build-up, then they go at halftime, they come out and they start to braai their meat and cook their meat. Then they watch the other half, and then after that they start to eat. Everybody has their own custom, and it's something that you can find when it comes to watching the Springboks. I also want to talk about some of my favorite Springbok players. Now, my favorite Springbok player, there are two. The first one is current, the other one is from way back, and I want to talk about the history. Please excuse that Boeing. Now, speaking of a Boeing, I think it's a Boeing 747. In the 1995 Olympics in South Africa, not Olympics, sorry, 1995 Rugby World Cup. What happened was the Springboks were playing, I'm not sure against who. Maybe it was I believe it was the final, Springboks versus All Blacks. I can't believe I'm not even remembering this. The Springboks versus All Blacks in the grand final to determine who would win the World Cup. And a Boeing 747 flew over the soccer stadium, or the rugby stadium. And the crowd went wild. That was a major thing. But now I'm going to tell you about my favorite ever Springbok rugby player. He goes by the name of Joel Stransky. Now, Joel Stransky is an absolute legend. If you aren't familiar with South African rugby, let me tell you what happened. So there were a few points to go. I believe New Zealand were 1 or 2 points ahead. And Joel Stransky was busy playing. He had the ball with him. And he thought, what are we going to do? What am I going to do so that the Springboks can win? And the time was ticking to the end. Coming, I believe, rugby matches 70 minutes or 80 minutes. It was coming up to the 80th minute. See, I'm more of a fan than an expert on rugby. It was coming up to the end, and the Springboks were going to lose. What did Joel Stransky do? He took the rugby ball, boom, and he kicked it, and it went, and the crowd went silent. And then it went through the post. And boom, they got their points, and South Africa won the 1995 Rugby World Cup. I want you to just imagine yourself in the stadium, sitting there in your little red blue chair, and you see the small rugby player, Joel Stransky, not small, but small for his dynamite comes in small packages, is what I mean. You see him running with the ball. He wasn't one of those big guys. He was just one of those very fast, zippy guys. And he's annoying how fast he is. And he took the ball. Imagine being in the stadium. Everyone goes silent. And he kicks it, and you don't know what's going to happen. Is he going to miss? Is it going to go through? And it goes through. And that is a man doing something on your team. So that's one of my first favorite rugby players. Now there's a second one. He's more current. This is now in the year 2024, 23, 24, 25, right? There was a guy named Siya Kolisi. Now I love Siya Kolisi because after the game, sometimes he's won, Castle Lager, this cup, or man of the match or whatever. And his humility is off the charts. He never makes out like he has it all. He always thanks God. He always thanks the crowd. He says, I just want to thank my fellow South Africans for coming out today and for showing support, because we as the boys really feel it. He has such humility, and I really commend Siya Kolisi. And if you're watching this year, you are one of my favorite, not just rugby players, but heroes of all time. and you are amazing to lead, not just lead the rugby team, but also lead South Africa. And so I'm a major Springbok fan. I've told you why I love the Springboks. It gives me a sense of pride. It gives me a sense of honor. These two people I just illustrated, Joel Stransky and Siya Kolisi, aren't just rugby players. You got to understand, they are playing on the world stage with cameras lined up all around them, people scrutinizing their actions. The captain of the rugby team, if they win, they celebrate and they shower him with blessings and they shower him with a gold cup and with food, and not just food, but sponsorships and everything that you can imagine. And if the team loses, which I know they never will, then everything gets retracted, everything gets taken away. So there's a lot of responsibility placed on the captain, Siya Kolisi, and the entire team. And I'm very happy to see where the Springboks are going. Because I remember when I was younger, when I was between the ages of 10 and 13, playing rugby and enjoying it at school and with my friends, I remember everybody losing faith in the Springboks. Because they had lost lots of matches, week after week after week. And they had this one coach, and they got a new coach, and everything was in turmoil. But what happened was they started to win one, and then they won another, and they won another, and then they won this cup and that cup, then they won the World Cup. And then they won the World Cup again. So it's amazing to see how the Springboks have seriously recovered. Yes, there's major heritage, but then bringing in new history, the Springboks had to reinvent themselves. And so Siya Kolisi led the entire team through that process, trying new players, bringing Kitsoff on. Kitsoff is a brilliant man. Now he's not playing. Bringing the beast on. For those of you aren't familiar with South African rugby, you've got to check out Stephen Kitsoff, an absolute legend, massive guy. And you also got to check out the beast, more than 100 caps. So these Springboks are incredibly skilled. They have been incredibly rewarded for their actions, and we as South Africans love them because of their major contribution. And these are just the recent guys. Joel Stransky is one of those older guys who's been through and through. Another guy that we have in our team is Eben Etzebeth. Eben Etzebeth, the humble giant. We don't really hear much from him. He doesn't talk too much to the crowd, to the audience, but from his personality that we can see with him on the field, we can see how he plays so hard. And every single one of the players, not even the players that I haven't even mentioned, are the reason why I and literally millions of South Africans gather together almost every single week whenever they're playing, and we braai and cook our meat together, we watch, we celebrate, we show our faces filled with popcorn, chips and Coke, and that is exactly why I love the Springboks. Now, even if you aren't from South Africa, and I'm not trying to convert you here, but even if you aren't from South Africa and you aren't familiar with rugby, I highly recommend that you start watching it. Try find a live stream online, try find a live stream on one of the platforms, you will be able to find it. And follow up with the news, because when you see the Springboks play, then you will truly understand why we are the world's best rugby team. And there's a reason that we've been winning, because we don't give up. And that's not just testimony to the fact that these boys train so hard and that these guys prepare and they train and they do everything they can so that they can win the Rugby World Cup or win their rugby tournaments. It's because we as the South African people are behind them. So when they're playing on the pitch, they aren't just a team. No, they aren't just 10, 15, 20 guys plus the guys who sit on the side and then they get swapped out. They aren't just a team with the coach. That extends to millions of people. So when the All Blacks come, when the Wallabies come, when all these other countries come to play South Africa, they aren't just playing that little team or that little team with medics and the coach, maybe it's 50 to 100 people. They are playing literally millions of people and all the tens of thousands of people in the stands. And that's why you should support the Springboks. And why the Springboks are the best rugby team in the world. Hey, Bokke!